today on the Plexus Blogcast, we want to talk about ways that you can grow your installation business. So Jared, what are some ways that our lovely audience can grow their installation business?
Yeah, so there's obviously a lot of different stages to consider and sizes.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody were to come to me and ask for advice, I would immediately ask them at least 3, 4, 5 questions. How many employees do you have? How many salespeople do you have? How many techs do you have? You get a feel for their company.
Right.
But in general, some rules of thumb, I guess, that I've always had is I always tell people, if you want to scale something, you have to create systems. You can't scale anything if you don't have protocols in place.
Mm-hmm.
I immediately follow that with advice that says, don't make a protocol for protocol's sake. People constantly kind of make too many rules when there's, if you hire the right people, give them the right amount of autonomy, give them the right amount of direction, you don't need to make as many rules.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to have this fine line between overdoing it and underdoing it.
Right. It's kind of what I've heard said before. You don't want to make your protocols or rules in your business foolproof, or you end up with fools in your business.
Yes, that's actually, I've heard that. I loved it when I heard it. I've forgotten it, but that's a fantastic way of wording it. The other thing that'll happen is that I've learned is people will get bored. You cannot attract smart, intelligent people if you leave them no agency, no autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't feel like they can make decisions and they're a part of this process, they'll find somewhere where they can be.
Right. So you're saying protocols and rules are really important for scaling business because you need those so that people know what they need to do and how to do it.
Yeah. So people really don't like it when they don't know what they're allowed to do. And then they get in trouble, or no, you shouldn't have done it this way. It's like, how was I supposed to know that was the way I was supposed to do it?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have enough there for people to feel like they have the right guardrails.
Mm-hmm.
I always say if somebody makes a mistake that was greater than they should have, then you let them have, it's your responsibility to kind of keep people within their own limits.
Oh, right.
Now they can break the rules and go outside of those limits. But if you haven't placed those limits, then that was on you.
Right. As the owner or leader.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I shouldn't put you in a position where you can fail greater than I was willing to allow you to fail. It's a relatively reasonable rule in small business.
Right. So how do you specify that to installation businesses? What does that look like for installation businesses?
So for our customers, and the reason they come to Plexus is we have extremely strong security groups, or I should say flexible security groups. So they can really build out the ability for people to be allowed to do things or see things that they should be and not. And they can really do that down to a personal level, which is very important at these size of companies.
Right.
And so you don't have 1 million workers at this level and you just have this one security group. A lot of times, especially with our smaller customers, 15-person company, you might have 15 security groups because each person's so unique for you. If you have a company of 40, you might have 20. And that's, that's really important. And so what that does is that's twofold. One, we're using security groups to really hone in what they need to see so that they're more efficient. So if I have a bunch of crap on the screen that I don't need to see, and I'm always kind of trying to find the thing I want, it's eye distraction. It's squirrel. What's this? But they couldn't even click on that. Once they go there, there's nothing to see. So we remove those with security groups.
Okay.
And we really keep it efficient that way. And then at the same time, you're of course setting up your guardrails.
Right. So the limitations are clearly there, but they're efficient because they have the information they need when they need it.
Yep.
Because
absolutely.
It's security groups in essence is, okay, these type of people need this type of information, and you can specify that within the software.
Exactly. So that's a real big reason why Plexus customers will value our software. I guess when opposing us to competitors, it's something that's unique. I'm trying to think here. Additional things people use for scaling with Plexus. We oftentimes use workflows. So we define them and then we automate them as much as possible. And again, this is just so a great example of this would be something like a day of notification. So we can set inside our status flags, like, hey, this is scheduled. And then we have a little checkbox and a rule that says, hey, day of automatically move me from scheduled to scheduled and notified. And then that can immediately that day kick out an email letting people know, like, hey, we're on our way to do a job at your house.
Oh, okay.
And so this is just an automated process now, rather than, of course, having a person manually do this or remember to do it.
Customer service, which can improve your reviews and how people find out about you, and referrals, which also can help you grow your business.
Yeah, you can generate a survey that kicks out at the end of every job. When a job goes into, I've never actually considered doing that, but it goes into close. Customer gets a, how did we do response, that they could reply back to the project manager on.
Which is really valuable data.
Yep.
To know if your customers are happy or not.
And you need to automate this valuable data if this is valuable for you to get. But if you don't review it and you don't use it, get rid of it.
Right. Because it's just taking up space.
Don't keep stats to keep stats. Like that's accounting is the same way. I always say, you don't make it more. If you're not going to review and need these level of detail, then you're being too detailed. It's going to slow you down. And so these are advices on kind of multiple areas of business that I give installation companies for scaling and growth. And almost always it has to do with like eliminating unnecessary work and then making the necessary and important work easier.
Right. So that people can do it quicker, more efficiently, and therefore can do more of it.
Yes.
Which is how you make money.
Yeah. So the other thing for scaling your company, not getting too far into it, but ultimately you need to focus on your employees and reduce turnover. That's probably the number one way to slow you down. So if I personally have a feeling that more and more companies will almost adopt technology for no other reason than to appease the young people. So I've seen a little bit of that, even in interest in Plexus. The owner's not necessarily wanting to do it, but their young crowd does. And so they better get on with the show or be left behind.
Right.
But ultimately, just kind of understanding your employees and giving them clear, defined rules and guidelines and opportunity is how you attract people. So forget technology. It's just how you do it. And that's going to be really important going forward as the economy has recently constricted more and more, and it's gotten more competitive to get a good employee.
Right. That's true. Another thing I think of is actually going back to our previous blogcast is thinking about faster installation quotes, because quotes are the lifeblood of an installation business, right? It's a numbers game. Usually you do this many quotes, you land this, this percentage of those quotes as jobs. So therefore usually the more quotes you do, if the numbers hold, then you're going to get more jobs and make more money.
Yeah. You'd like to be as formulaic as possible. And so, kind of what you're alluding to, if you're familiar or not with the terms lead and lag measures, I always call those lead measures. And so a lag measure is when if I go look at my profit loss statement and see how I did last month, that's great and all, but it's too late. It's over.
Right.
Whereas a lead measure is more looking into the future. So I would look at it and say, all right, so I want to create a formula that's predicting growth and scaling.
Right.
So if I was an installation company, I would say, okay, so let's just pretend I'm trying to build relationships with developers. So I would then say, okay, for every 5 developers I go to lunch with, I develop a relationship with 1.
Right.
Or for every 20, maybe it's 100. It doesn't matter. And so a great lead measure then is, if you develop a relationship, that each relationship will produce X amount of opportunity for quotes, and then that system starts to feed itself. So if you're really concerned about scaling your company and you need relationships with developers, and that's just what you need, then you should be more concerned actually with the amount of developers you meet with than anything else, as long as you have systems and protocols for those to go. And you need to just make sure, like, okay, I want X amount of growth in my business. I need to have 1 developer meeting every week for lunch. And maybe you do 1 maintaining of a relationship, because you also want to close your back door.
Right.
And that's just the way you grow your business. So same thing with cold calls.
Yeah.
On a cold call, I'm going to call 10 a day. That's going to produce X, Y, and Z.
So really thinking through your numbers and being able to know your numbers so that you can know what that is and be able to go after those things of, hey, we need our sales guys to do this many quotes this month because we want to hit this sales target.
Yep, exactly. Because you're going to know that if you don't do those, like there's just nothing else. It's new revenue is key. It sounds so naive and simple.
Right.
That new revenue is the lifeblood of your company. It's like, well, of course it is.
Yes.
But actually, if you've taken a few punches and been around the block, you start to realize like it's naive for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing or talking about, or they think it's easy, they're just saying it. But once you get out there in the real world, you learn like this is key.
Right.
And it always is key, and it will always be the main source of a company scaling.
Yeah. It's that new revenue.
Yep.
Solves a lot of problems.
Yep.
And so, and if you want to know more about faster quoting, check out our previous blogcast. And thank you, Jared, for being here on this one and having this good conversation on how to grow installation companies. And if you liked it, please follow us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or subscribe to our channel on YouTube. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Plexus Blogcast.
Thanks, man.